I've always loved family artifacts, old photographs, and stories about the past. When my grandmother invited me to help her sort through the attic, I was excited to spend a few hours among dusty boxes, yellowed letters, and objects steeped in history. But I wasn't prepared for what I would find in one of those boxes. The attic was small, with low ceilings and creaky floorboards. The air smelled of old wood and paper. My grandmother pointed to a corner filled with several boxes. She mentioned that they contained items belonging to her grandmother, untouched for decades. The first box was full of letters, envelopes, and postcards written in elegant, flowing handwriting. The second contained books and notebooks filled with notes. But the third box immediately caught my attention. It was decorated with a vine-like pattern, and inside was an old leather photo album. The album's cover was cracked with age, and its metal corners had darkened over time. As I opened it, it felt like stepping into another era. Every photo was black and white or sepia-toned, showing the faces of people long gone, shyly smiling at the camera. Each picture had a few words written underneath: names, places, dates. My grandmother sat beside me, explaining who was who. One photograph, however, made my blood run cold. In the image was a group of people standing in front of a large red brick building. The back of the photo read, "City Market, 1923. I studied the faces carefully and then saw one that stopped me in my tracks. It was me. Or rather, a man who looked exactly like me. The same facial features, the same head shape, even the same scar on the eyebrow that I'd gotten after a childhood fall. "Grandma, who is this?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She squinted, put on her glasses, and leaned closer to the photograph. "That must be my grandfather, Walter," she said. "I remember my mom used to say he was a handsome man. You do look a lot like him." Her words didn't explain what I was seeing. This wasn't just a resemblance. This was me, my face, my posture. Even the clothes seemed to fit me as if I had chosen them myself. I took the photograph home with me. The more I looked at it, the more questions filled my mind. Grandma said Walter had died young. He lived in the same town as I do now, but back in the 1920s. There were too many coincidences to ignore. That night, I had a strange dream. I was standing in the marketplace just like in the photograph. People around me were smiling, waving, greeting me. They all called me Walter. The dream was so vivid that I could smell freshly baked bread and hear the creak of wagon wheels on the cobblestone streets. When I woke up, it took me several minutes to realize it had been a dream. The next day, I started digging deeper. I found old family records and learned that Walter had indeed been a well-known figure in his small town. People admired him for his kindness and integrity, but his life had a darker side. Shortly before his death, he had started saying strange things. His friends and family recalled that he often complained about being watched. He claimed he saw a man who looked just like him, observing him from a distance. I couldn't get the photograph out of my head. It felt like it was calling to me. Eventually, I hung it on the wall of my room, thinking it might help me get used to it. But that's when things started to get strange. The photograph seemed to change. Sometimes, when I glanced at it, the faces of the people around Walter looked blurry, as if they were fading away. One night, I could have sworn Walter's gaze shifted to look directly at me, though he had been staring off to the side before. On the third night, I had another dream, but this one was different. I was standing in the same marketplace, but it was empty. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of the wind stirring dust across the street. In the distance, I saw a figure approaching. It was an old man with a gaunt face. He grabbed my arm and whispered, "Leave. You don't belong here." I woke up screaming. A red mark was left on my wrist, as though someone had actually grabbed me. The next day, the photograph was gone. It wasn't on the wall or anywhere in the house. But every night, I dream of the marketplace. And every night, Walter's figure gets closer, his piercing gaze burning through me.